In late June 1941, as daybreak cast its first glow across the eastern horizon, humanity witnessed its most massive ground offensive ever launched. Operation Barbarossa had begun. Far beyond a mere military strike, this represented a holy war, the brutal realization of Adolf Hitler's fixation on eliminating what he considered his primary adversary, the vast, mysterious Soviet state. A tidal surge of nearly 4 million troops from the Axis powers, backed by countless armored vehicles and warplanes, pushed forward along a front stretching 1,000 miles. Their goal, mandated by the Führer personally, was stunning in its hubris: to subjugate a country covering 11 time zones and force its surrender within a mere 5 months. The Soviet military found itself in complete disarray. Stalin had ignored countless alerts from his intelligence apparatus, believing Hitler wouldn't risk an attack. The leadership of the Red Army, already gutted and intimidated by Stalin's brutal political cleansing campaigns from the previous decade, found itself frozen with uncertainty. Consequently, Germany's opening strike wasn't really combat. It was wholesale destruction. The German Air Force decimated Soviet aircraft while they sat defenseless on airfields and armored columns, the steel edge of German lightning warfare, carved through chaotic Russian defensive positions with frightening efficiency. Germany's military juggernaut, like a three-pronged monster of tremendous strength, penetrated far into Soviet lands. Along the northern axis, Army Group North under Field Marshal von Lieb aimed for Leningrad, birthplace of the Bolshevik uprising. To the south, Army Group South, led by experienced Field Marshal von Rundstedt, ripped through the expansive productive grasslands of Ukraine, the Soviet Union's agricultural heartland. Between them, the strongest formation, Field Marshal von Bock's Army Group Center, possessed one focused, dominating goal: to seize Moscow, the governmental, logistical, and symbolic center of the Soviet nation. Before long, German progress wasn't counted in miles but in conquered territories. By mid-July, following weeks of savage combat, von Bock's troops seized Smolensk, an ancient settlement called the gateway to Moscow. The final significant barrier protecting the approach to the capital had fallen. Throughout the globe, defense experts and government leaders watched anxiously. From Britain to America, the verdict seemed clear. The Soviet state was doomed. Stalin, at last jolted from his delusional state, confronted an almost impossible predicament. Theoretically, he commanded close to 1 million soldiers to protect his capital. Yet the truth was disastrous. Among his 83 divisions available, barely 25 remained battle-ready. The others were broken fragments, dispirited, and desperately lacking supplies. Against this phantom army, the Germans readied their ultimate push. Late September 1941 marked the launch of Operation Typhoon. The designation suggested a tempest, and a tempest indeed arrived. Germany's strategy was a brilliant example of encirclement, created to surround and destroy remaining Russian forces before they could fall back to the capital's fortifications. At Bryansk, 2 complete Soviet armies found themselves encircled. Further north near Vyazma, the jaws of Germany's 3rd and 4th Armored Armies closed in an enormous operation, ensnaring 4 additional armies. Moscow's initial defensive barrier hadn't simply failed, it had evaporated. Within these encirclements alone, more than 660,000 Russian troops became prisoners, pushing the cumulative prisoner count since summer to a shocking, nearly unbelievable 3 million soldiers. The path toward Moscow stood completely exposed. Stalin possessed merely a skeletal garrison of roughly 90,000 depleted troops and under 150 armored vehicles to shield a metropolis of millions. By mid-October, the forward German armored elements stood only 87 miles from the Kremlin towers. Terror gripped the city. A chilling, oppressive dread settled over the population. Soviet leadership initiated a panicked withdrawal of essential industries and personnel. Military rule was imposed. The metropolis was being converted into a stronghold, yet a stronghold lacking defenders. However, precisely when German triumph appeared certain, the Russian terrain itself mounted its resistance. A timeless, unconquered commander assumed control: General Mudd. The fall precipitation, the feared Rasputitsa season, commenced. Russia's dirt pathways, never intended for massive mechanized vehicles, transformed into an enormous, roiling ocean of unpassable muck. German armored vehicles, featuring their notoriously slim treads, engineered for Western Europe's solid highways, submerged to their gun mounts. Transport vehicles, the essential sustenance of the campaign, became utterly trapped, occasionally progressing mere miles daily. Lightning warfare, a doctrine completely reliant on velocity, literally ground to a standstill. Grudgingly, late October saw German High Command order a temporary suspension of operations. This critical breathing space, granted by nature, provided the miracle Russians required. Stalin, exhibiting the merciless determination characteristic of his leadership, exploited this interval to mobilize his country's concealed reserves. From Siberia's remotest regions in the Far East, units of battle-hardened cold-weather troops started a 1,000-mile trek westward. These were soldiers who considered snow not an impediment, but their native element. Concurrently, from relocated manufacturing plants, now secure beyond the Ural Range, a flow of fresh T-34 tanks, possibly the war's finest tank, started reaching the battlefield. When temperatures dropped, the muck solidified into rock-solid, rutted terrain. Germany's assault could continue. Mid-November saw the armored divisions lurch ahead again. Their plan involved surrounding Moscow, crushing it into surrender. The 3rd and 4th Armored Armies would thrust from the north, while the 2nd Armored Group would strike from the south, catching the capital in a climactic pincer movement. Yet now Germans confronted their second formidable adversary, General Winter. Temperatures dropped to depths their weather experts had considered impossible for November. 20, then 30, then 40 degrees below freezing. For German troops, still wearing their lightweight summer clothing, it resembled a frozen inferno. Frostbite became as dangerous as hostile fire. Firearms jammed, the metal so frigid it would strip flesh from soldiers' palms. Armored vehicle motors wouldn't ignite without continuous warming from burning fires. The Russians, dressed in their insulated white winter garments and felt footwear, thrived in these conditions. They confronted the frozen, depleted Germans with savage determination. Through 2 grueling weeks, German forces struggled ahead, contesting every settlement, every icy waterway, every forested area. Southward, the 2nd Armored Group suffered massive casualties and halted before Tula. Northward, the 4th Armored Group, in one final Herculean push, succeeded in advancing across the frozen Moscow-Volga Canal. Limited elements of the 7th Panzer Division reached just 22 miles from Red Square, yet they were exhausted, a mere remnant of the force that launched the invasion. They could advance no more. Near the modest industrial settlement of Khimki, merely 18 miles from the Kremlin, Germany's offensive hit its absolute maximum extent. An enduring myth emerged that a minor German reconnaissance unit glimpsed the golden Kremlin domes through their field glasses. It's a compelling tale, but almost definitely false. The camouflaged city would have remained invisible. What the freezing troops probably witnessed was a bitter illusion. The pale winter sunlight reflecting off ice-covered buildings. This marked the peak achievement of Nazi Germany. The isolated contingent of German forces in Khimki awaited support that never materialized. Early December saw them unceremoniously expelled by a rapidly formed unit of local defenders and several tanks. Currently, the location is commemorated by a simple, austere monument featuring massive anti-tank barriers. December 5, 1941 witnessed Germany's Moscow offensive officially stagnate and collapse. Operation Typhoon's fury had exhausted itself. Subsequently, along the complete battlefront, the Red Army, which the world had dismissed as defeated, launched a huge surprise counterattack. 100 fresh divisions, including crack Siberian winter troops on skis, crashed into the frozen, exhausted German positions. For German soldiers, it became a waking nightmare. The predators had transformed into prey. When the Soviet counterattack paused in January 1942, Germans had been thrown backward in certain sectors over 150 miles from Moscow's outskirts. The danger to the capital had passed. The engagement had inflicted upon both armies a combined cost exceeding 2 million casualties, a stunning measure of human devastation. The legend of German supremacy lay destroyed, frozen across Russia's infinite snows. The monumental conflict for the Soviet Union's survival remained far from finished, yet its critical juncture had arrived. The extended, brutal journey toward Berlin had commenced. The Moscow engagement transcended a solitary battle. It represented a monumental watershed moment created through mud, snow, and inconceivable sacrifice. It stands as proof of the savage truths of the Eastern battleground, a concealed history frequently eclipsed by other wartime events. If you feel these crucial narratives merit being shared, and you wish to accompany us on our upcoming exploration into the shadowy and decisive moments of history, please subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell. Your engagement enables us to persist in revealing the history that formed our contemporary world. If you found this account valuable, subscribe for additional World War II content. Thanks for watching.